Welcome to Healthcare Executive Podcast with Dinakara Nagalla. Yeah, you're a serial tech entrepreneur and AI innovator. Are you from Hyderabad and then you moved to the US?
Pretty much, my 2 decades plus of US ended up in aviation with, US based aviation. So for several years, I worked at American Airlines as primarily heading aviation maintenance across the American Airlines network, and then built a company called EmpowerMX. So the entire thesis of the company is optimization, how to make flying safer, maintenance safer, and optimize technicians' work. So everything is fast, clean, and scale, and can be scaled. So that's my background in aviation. So I spent about 2 decades in that. Then I sold my company in 2024, and because I want to focus more on technologies that help humans much better than what I was doing in the commercial sector. So from there, I picked Menthra. So I really didn't come from healthcare. I truly arrived as a entrepreneur technologist who hit his own wall and observed how people, some experience, my personal experience, cost availability, how mental health is generally looked at across the globe, not just India. And particularly when it comes to India, it's fewer people, too much shame in asking. So either way, I want to solve that problem differently than most of these current AI technology companies are solving mental health. So that got me into Menthra from there.
But why mental health? Was there any specific incident that sort of motivated you to get into mental health?
Great question. The generation of people that came from 70s and 80s until 70s and 80s, maybe early 90s, don't have a concept of burnout. Right. Primarily, we deal with things as they come in, and we approach them with a pragmatic view. Just that's because we're kind of trained and brought up like that. So all the generations preceding that generation has a different outlook, particularly in India, right? So that view shaped my thinking on what mental health truly is about. Then I had a personal incident in 2020, a time pre-COVID, ran through post-COVID, that truly impacted me. Not so much my mental health, but something around my life that deeply changed how I look at things. So that has one other impact on me. Then between 24 and 25, when I'm figuring out how to put technology to best use, I saw this YouTube video in US and India, and then globally it addressed how low income populations, that are convicted for false accusations or whatever, which are 70+% of them across the globe, deal with mental health. And then I also saw this big loneliness pandemic that is affecting India. So all those factors combined, I think that tipped me over, thinking I can really put my technology to use to shape how mental health is viewed and how the support can go through all aspects of economic layers that we have, not just US or India, but globally, right? So those all contributed to it. And then I wrote a book in 2024, Becoming Human, actually, that ended up launching in 2025. It was bestseller on Amazon for many months. While mental health isn't directly addressed in the book, it was an underlying thing, how it affects leadership, how it affects your interactions with people. So I think all that shaped on what I want to do next in my life, and that's how Mentra was born.
So, what is the core idea of Mentra? Like, what are you trying to do through your startup?
In my opinion, India never built an emotional well-being infrastructure. We have too few clinicians, and in my opinion, like I said earlier, there is just too much stigma. And, while the care is not too expensive in India, it's still expensive enough for mid to, lower economic, zones in India. And then it's very because the availability is also scarce, it's very difficult to reach. So I feel like most people just carry it along. So what we are building is the layer underneath it. I wouldn't treat it or call it as an AI chatbot, in any sense, because I truly want to build a companion. I would never call it as a replacement for human because that will never happen. But I do want to call it as something very sincere and serious, which remembers you, helps you actually work through what's weighing you down instead of just coping with it forever, and connects you to a human. It can also connect you to a human when you need one. But we focus on the thesis of resolution, not management, because majority of the mental health resolves around management. It's never focused on how do you resolve it, because 60 to 70% of the cases I feel like they can truly be resolved. So with that said, we're not trying to be the whole system, but we are trying to build a part of it that was never there, given infrastructure that has a very high quality companion service that was never available before, and it helps progress the entire thing towards resolution instead of just managing.
So, do the companions really remember every conversation? Because I read somewhere that your core principle is your story should never reset.
Right, right. Yes, I would say that's one of the biggest differentiators between Mantra and every other AI chatbot out there, including ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, and all these other tools. What we did is continuously enhancing the system to be able to remember every aspect of what you are mentioning, not like, not for any other purpose other than help you resolve, right? Like, for example, I'll use this as an example. Hey, I had a fight with my husband, and, this time the conflict lasted over a day. Then the way Mantra functions is I see three past instances you mentioned over to me, and all these three have one thing in common. When you say something, your husband reacted like this, or when your husband says you reacted like this. So instead, why don't you take this approach next time and try to resolve the problem this way, right? So we use that memory in a way to help resolve the problem. Yes, it can truly tap into based not just based on the conversations you had, like like a general purpose LLM does, but it truly brings in the context-based awareness. That's one piece of it. The second piece of it is we also tie into other behavioral patterns that the system kind of analyzes along the way. The conflicts are universal. So I have a specific behavior, like, for example, when my son throws his clothes on the floor, immediately I react versus responding or versus taking a measured approach on dealing with that. So that behavior I exhibit with anybody at home. Like if my wife does the same thing, or if I have my brother come in or my mother come in and live with me, I exhibit the same behavior. I'm explaining my conflict with about my wife. That hey, I my wife threw the clothes there. I got mad and I shouted at her. So then the husband, my wife reacts negatively to what I said. Then in the past, I had a conversation with Mantra, a similar concept with my son, and a similar concept with my mom, who is also living with me. So what I'm trying to explain here is AI kind of relates this pattern across multiple
It will
incidents
recognize.
instead of single incident.
So another thing which I was curious about, you also have someone called a creator, wellness creator or something.
Yeah, yeah,
So could you
yeah.
elaborate how the model works?
Yes, yes. Great question. So Mantra has three distinct features in it. One is the AI companions. The second one is therapist network. And third one is coaching network. Because in my opinion, therapy and coaching should always go hand in hand. because you can't simply turn on the switch on a behavior to become a right one. You need certain amount of coaching to help you build a habit. So which is why I viewed coaching as a very critical thing. Then I also made sure AI is not 100% response to get a complete resolution. There will be 10 to 20% of cases out there, or maybe a little bit more than that, that requires human intervention. So I want to be able to tap into the therapist network to be able to provide that support. Now, in the same AI companion chat, we put in all the fundamentals of coaching that helps improvise a conversation. Most AI chatbots that are out there, they listen to you, they respond very shallowly, and they try to pretend to be a therapist. In our case, we induce the principles of coaching in there, so it helps how to deal with a problem. The reason I have creators on the platform is a lot of creators on social media, most of them, they're passionate about either coaching or mental health or something like that. We're only focusing on those. Creators can also be private creators. So, for example, I can have my dad or mom or my mentor record their avatar in the platform. And I can get a similar service from them because I respect them a lot. When they talk to me, the effect of their words, even though a lot of them are formed by AI, will impact how I behave. And the final thing we did is, even though we have a core, a logic infrastructure, algorithms built in on how it conversates with individuals, creators and therapists and coaches, when they create their own twins on the platforms, they can add their own instructions on how it should behave, what they believe in, their ideologies and all that stuff. So they can in fact download their thinking into the platform, and their twins, with the help of that behavior and the core infrastructure we built, will conversate with their followers or people that relate to them.
I was
Right.
wondering, what is this concept of digital twin? So basically, it's an AI avatar who will sort of talk to the user like you based on your
Right.
ideology and principles, right?
Yes, yes, yes. The core principles will not be changed so much, right? Like, for example, ChatGPT is ChatGPT, but what changes is, the instructions I put into it. My core infrastructure doesn't change, but when you add those additional instructions on, it changes the behavior slightly.
When did you launch your company?
So I started working on this in April of last year. On the entire digital twin concept, on creating your avatars and stuff. I want to simultaneously launch this in India and US. I want to primarily launch in India because the more I learned about how critical an infrastructure or a tool like this in India, and when I started looking at what government of India is doing on the mental health side, and then the response we got is like 10 times bigger than the response we got in US on the platform. I want to launch this in India first, launching in US only because the adaptability and the interest and the need in India is far more significant than what I've seen in US. So for example, in 30,000 users I think we're about 33,000 now. 6,000 or so are US users. Again, we organically received those users on the platform, the US users. We didn't start like a very concerted effort to gain users in US yet. Whereas in India, rest of the users are from India. That was the main reason. It's just that we realized the platform's potential and platform can be a lot more usable and useful. And I kind of see that every day, right? We get like a report on how many sessions are happening, the average length of the session. People use it about 15, 20 minutes. But the average length of the session in my case is over 45 minutes. At 45 minutes it's not like people are coming in and playing with AI. They're coming in and talking real stuff. 95% of the people that are using in India on the platform, that are on the platform, they're discussing real issues. They're discussing real crises. So, so when I see all these statistics, I just felt like, if we do this right and get this done right, this can be a huge tool and huge support system that we can put in India. Both they can book therapists on the platform because we're building a huge therapist marketplace. I have about 1,000+ therapists on the platform now, counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, all combined. And we have about 5,000+ interests to come into our marketplace in India. So that process and also paid campaigns will starting next week. We are modifying our pricing for India, and it will become more context based. Indian counseling therapy services, they run about 20 anywhere between 1,500 to 5,000 rupees, depending on the intensity of therapy and how much the therapist wants to bill. Because we are not going to decide that price, we are going to suggest a price. But in the end, what therapists bill is what they say, but that's about the average price. And our monthly subscription to use AI companions, it will start around 199 rupees, per month. And you get to use all the Menthra AI companions on the platform. Right. So we didn't tie up with Nimhans yet. However, my chief medical officer and my head of Mantra Care in India is Nimhan's trained psychiatrist. Her name is Dr. Anjali Jaisingani. She runs the Mantra Care platform and she's also chief medical officer on the platform. So that's an example of how seriously we took this. Then we're also building an advisory board in India. I have 2 people on my advisory board that we run all our crisis algorithms, how the crisis works, how we treat, how AI interacts with clients and all that stuff. So they advise me and the platform on how it behaves and how AI should respond. They sample the conversations and give me feedback on how we can enhance the platform. So right now, I don't have any direct partnerships with any organizations as such, other than the individuals from those organizations. Yes. Good question. Indian languages and English are genuinely hard, and we are very early. However, the AI speaks some languages really well, like Tamil, English, Hindi, and Gujarati, and few of the languages. The other languages like Telugu, Malayalam, and a few other regional languages, we are constantly improvising them, which is why you probably see some beta right next to them. For hyper interactive twins, the regional languages skill hasn't improved yet generally. So we are working with our providers to improvise them. So like every week, you're going to see some level of improvement in how my companions speak local languages. So see, that has everything to do with how comfortable I am in my own language versus English, how comfortably I can express, right? Not everyone can express in English as well as in their own language. So, which is why we have languages. Cultural sensitivities, for example, if someone comes and says, hey, my in-laws are threatening me on dowry stuff, to me, that's cultural sensitivity. Or I didn't wear a sari, I wore some Western dresses and someone is unhappy with me. So those things also we infused into the bot and said into our and 2 or 3 times we improvise AI's ability to deal with those cultural sensitivities. So I think we are doing a fantastic job because majority of my users, when they use the platform on cultural sensitivities, they send us feedback. Like every day, 10% of the people that use the platform will provide feedback, and 80+% of them not only rate the conversation, but they also say what they loved about it. So a couple of things they commented on is how it adopted. Like this guy is from Bengal, I think, based on the name, on the review name he put in. And he basically said, I'm kind of shocked and surprised how well it adopted to where I came from, and how well it also spoke in Bengali, right? So some of the things it does really well, some things it's not doing well, we are continuously working to improvise on them.
Okay. Um, so when I was reading or researching about your platform, right? So one of the interesting facts was definitely, you know, the feature that Mentra remembers the users over time, right? So it is a really powerful thing, but at the same time also risky. Like you mentioned that so many users are sharing personal details on the platform. So, what exactly does the platform remember, for how long, and who can access it? So, I know in US you have HIPAA and all the other regulations. It's still an evolving sector, right? When it comes to data privacy and all that. So, I think so. I would like to know that what sort of regulations have or measures have you put in place to ensure that the privacy of a patient is like taken care of?
That's an amazing question, and you would certainly appreciate the length we went to build legal compliance for Mantra. Now, in the terms of your real concern too, you know, users are sharing a lot of personal data. How are you safeguarding and protecting them? In the case of Mantra, what we did is we disconnect users' conversations directly from the user itself. And we encrypt all the conversations, both in transit. When we interact with AI, we disconnect the end user from what conversations go into AI. So there is no direct correlation. Then we have a extensive staff access policy. None of my developers has access to the Mentra, database. The safety officer gets crisis alerts. When he gets crisis alerts, he will have access to the crisis information for the user only, because we have to act as per legalities and we want to make sure we protect the users. Or anything child safety related, we will access who is a trained psychologist and therapist and psychiatrist. Only those people will have access to, again, trained stuff. Anonymously, the conversations get, analyzed on a random sample, not again linked to any end user, to improvise the conversations, not by general purpose AI, but our platform's logic. So we don't even send that stuff back into the platform. So I have defined a staff access, and made it available to all the end users on the Mantra website. So they can see all those details I just kind of talked about in that staff access link on the Mantra website. Yes. Again, thank you for asking that question, and I'll be very open and honest. No, we don't have any clinical evidence yet, because it's going to take a little bit of time for us to kind of achieve that level of approval evidence, right? What I do have is user provided feedback to the AI on how it is helping them, but not a clinical evidence. And then what I also have is when we review crisis messages that come in the platform, we see how my Mantra companions react. When I say we, it's my safety officer, who is again NIMS trained, and my chief medical officer. So when they review those conversations, the feedback they provide is the only evidence that I have. And the feedback that I get my advisory group, again, who are also trained the psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists. So they provide certain amount of feedback. So that's the feedback we have. And based on that, we constantly improvise. So far, we feel very good about the work it is doing. I cannot tell you that it's going to replace a therapist. I would never tell you that. But what I can tell you with confidently is it is helping people that are using the platform, because I have constantly a significant portion of the people coming back and using the platform. We were hoping if someone comes back once a week, we will. Right now, I have a large portion of my users. They come back, some like every day, and a significant portion of them more than 2 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do have a complete forget me option. We we didn't add the feature to delete only certain portions of the discussion yet. We'll be adding that too. So they don't have to delete their entire memory. So there is a delete option. If some reason, if AI still has remnants of any of the conversation, user can reach out to a email, and that happened to us. And then we execute a more admin option to remove the user's memory out of the system.
So how Indian is this product, right? See, when you try a lot of international platforms, a lot of people have this complaint that they don't really understand the Indian context, right? Like, for example, family pressure or like caste, class anxieties, for example, right? And or it could even be arranged marriage stress. While I was just trying your companion, so I asked the companion, right? See, I am facing a lot of loneliness and I'm living in a big city. And so the companion told me to, just go out, go to a cafe, and, you go out regularly and then you make friendships. So, probably this might not be something that will work in a Indian context, right? Unlike probably it might work in US or other countries. But then there's sort of like it just doesn't work like that in India, right? So how culturally Indian is this product? Because the market already has a lot of other platforms. So if an Indian user wants to use it, so they might want a therapist or an AI companion who really understands them, right? So what sort of
Right.
measures have you sort of adopted to make it very Indian?
Right. That's a very important question. It's very important because cultural sensitivity is key. Like I was saying before, it simply doesn't come from your ability to speak in local language. It comes from the companion understanding your background, the context and stuff. So we have some conversation styles, like for example, best friend conversation style has more Indian context than the remaining conversation styles that we have on the platform. However, the work we are doing between this week and next week is going to dramatically add more Indianness to the platform, in other words. So, one comment you just made on that made me chuckle because, for example, go out to cafe and that's how you make friends. So that was a specific theme we put in for India. No, you are right. You are right. I mean, see, the most important thing is safety also comes into play here, right? So I would say give it a try towards end of June. Some of this Indianness will arrive in it, pretty fast. We're testing it. We're not ready to kind of put it into the platform until end of next week. I think you'll see a lot more Indianness than you have seen so far in the platform. I mean, that's a kind of constant effort to make it more geologically aware, cultural aware, along with the languages that it can speak.
So are you also planning to tie up with hospitals and psychiatrists? Because when I checked on the platform, have there were a couple of these homeo clinics, then an acupuncture wellness clinic was also your like partner clinic, right? So I just didn't
Right.
understand.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a very critical evolution within Mantra itself that we are actively pushing towards, right? So my thesis is resolution, not management. And resolution simply is not going to come from talking to a therapist or talking to a companion. It comes from various different activities that you holistically work with yourself, all the way from doing yoga, strength training, vitamins and minerals you consume, some Ayurvedic practices. See, there are so many alternative approaches that in some can help you get from point A to point B in a much effective way than simply talking to a therapist. So one of the things we are putting in the platform is, for example, depression or sadness or something serious can come from pain. So, and that pain is not getting resolved, right? So I'm going to use that specific example because it mental health is affected by many different things, and this has a direct correlation to some of the stuff you're seeing there. So pain can be resolved, effectively through many different ways, including, acupuncture through, some Ayurvedic practices through, some allopathic care, not all of them, through some specific style acupressure or massage techniques, right? So what I want to do is, depending on the conversation the end user is doing with Mantra, once the conversation is complete, we want to provide him support, without interfering directly in the conversation with his conversation, but show in an adjacent way. Hey, do you know your specific type of pain perhaps could help get resolved by this technique better based on these facts? You may want to try these 2 or 3 practices that are currently on Mantra. You can book a session to Mantra with them or directly call them. So once the core issue gets resolved for the end user, his mental health will get better. I'm just kind of using a very simplistic example here, right? And then for some, lack of certain minerals and, because our environment and our lifestyle devoids of so many nutrients on every day how we are living and the food we are getting to consume, sometimes not by choice, it requires some additional infusion into our body, right? Either direct consumption or changing the way we eat. So depending on how the conversation with the end user goes, it identifies those issues and again provides a different technique there. Same thing with therapists and coaching. If AI recognizes that it's beyond its ability to help the client other than kind of continuing the conversation, again, we link them to the end user.
Yeah, I saw that on the platform.
Right.
Regarding that, right, is are we sort of
Huh.
over engineering the whole thing? Because now we need data from everything, right? Like Apple Watch is not enough, you need a Whoop. But what do you do with so much data also? So you built your idea from aviation, right? Where you sort of focused on aviation maintenance memory, right? But do you worry that by making AI remember and analyze people's feelings so much, are we like turning very personal human pain into a data point? Like, are we getting too much obsessed with data? Will we really benefit from it?
So I just don't deny any of what you said. However, the way I look at it is, as the creator of the platform, I feel like I'm morally responsible and accountable to make sure that I use we are using the data responsibly for the end user, period, right? So that's our very critical thesis. Now, that's a very simple, abstract response to what you said, but it's a very important response that because we operate by the theme. So now, are we over engineering or overusing the data? So I'm coming from the perspective that we don't have enough people, enough trained clinicians or trained individuals to help out 1.5 billion people. We have a very small portion of trained folks that can only help a fraction of crisis we are dealing with today. So how do you answer or how do you respond to that situation, right? So, when you can't provide human service. Now, human service comes with a lot of empathy because that's what makes you different from a machine and a lot of understanding, but it also comes with a lot of bias and a lot of concern too. A lot of bias in the sense that, one of the things I got as a feedback significantly from on why therapy is not taking off as fast as it needs to is because of the same lack of empathy that makes you a human. Or when an individual goes and talks due to proper lack of training or whatnot, they don't get treated with proper empathy, or they don't have enough time in the day to be able to remember of sessions I'm taking. So there are all these issues that also comes with simply relying on humans, right? Because we just don't have enough of them, and we don't have enough of them trained. and we have a
Very
large set of
expensive.
population that are dealing with it.
Yeah.
So with AI, I want to create a responsible set of data set that supports them. How the end user uses the data is completely up to him. We are not forcing that you need to do this. What we are simply telling him is on his fingertips, hey, these are the services, this is how it's going to help you. And we are leaving the making of choice human itself.
All right. I think we've come to the last question. So usually people ask 5 years from now, what are your future plans or what would you count as success? But I would like to know from you, what would you count as failure for Mentra? Like, would it be low adoption or what are you really worried about? A privacy breach, a clinical safety incident, or is it like if it becomes just another chatbot where, that people used to just to feel better without really improving their mental health. So, what would you count as a failure of Mentra?
Yeah, that's a great question, but some of the points you made, no matter how good of a system you build, there is always incidents out there that we have to be wary of. Well, we're going to make everything humanly, legally, and technologically possible to make sure everything is safeguarded. I think incidents are bound to happen. I've done so much in aviation to protect people's lives. It's a very critical safety line that I ever worked with. And I can tell you, no matter how much care, how much technology, how much effort we put in, incidents are bound to happen. And I can guarantee you something bad will happen too. It's that not that something bad happens, it's really how you respond to it, how responsibly you act post that thing that happens, and how you fix it, how you learn from it, right? And so that's what I would apply when a failure, system failure happens. I'm not talking so much adoption, I'm talking about other incidents like you mentioned, right? So the real failure, the one that would mean we built the wrong thing is if we became just another thing people are addicted to, which you brought up right before this question. If we created dependence instead of resolution, if 5 years in, people are more attached to Mantra and no better off, just managing their plan slightly more comfortably with us in their pocket, then I feel like it's a failure. Even if the numbers look great, even if Mantra is being used by millions and millions of people, if I have a significant subset of people keep coming back to the platform, then they can come for coaching, but they come for mental health on a daily basis. To me, that looks like a failure because I'm not following my thesis. Second failure, which I take just as seriously, is if we ever let technology replace the human where human was needed, right? So we're trying to be in between sessions. We are trying to provide service when enough people are not available. We're trying to enable a human to be more powerful, to provide more service. But if someone is in real crisis and got an algorithm where they needed a person and we missed it, that's not just a product miss, that's the thing we exist to prevent. So getting that wrong would betray the entire reason why I started this. Then obvious failure, of course, is that we didn't reach the scale or the company didn't make it. I mean, that would be a big failure, no matter how crazy of technology I put in, how best of a technology I put in that I'm proud of. But if I can't get the scale, of course, it's going to fail, right? To just wrap this up, success isn't just big numbers to me. Success is people leaving us better and a human always being there at the moments that truly matter. If we hit the numbers but we miss that, I would also count it as a form of failure.